Inside Michigan Football is presented by Meyer.
Hi again, friends, and welcome to another edition of Inside Michigan Football. Doug Karsh alongside the captain, John Jansen. Michigan at the bye week 4-2 with a stretch run and a brutal schedule to come. And John, as we take a look back at the first half, one of the big stories is the quarterback, and a quarterback that might be providing a little bit of hope. Jack Tuttle, who got his chance after coming off an injury, played at Washington, showed some promise.
Yeah, obviously you can't have the two turnovers, but 3 drives when he first got in there, 3 scores. He was able to move the ball up and down the field, and it really felt like it opened up everything in this offense that you're able to do.
You mentioned the turnovers and specifically the fumble. How much of that is possibly knocking off some rust, given that he hasn't played in a while?
Well, he hasn't been in that situation, and it's one of those things where it should have been taught in Pee Wee football. When you're carrying the ball, it's high and tight. You're not like a loaf of bread. But again, it is. You've got to get back in the flow of everything. He's only been practicing for like 10 days.
So the Wolverines will enter the second half. Sharon Moore said earlier in the week that they are hoping to give Tuttle a chance to continue to grow into the position. Our Ed Kangerski has more.
Almost a year since his last appearance, Tuttle says he felt comfortable right away in his season debut. After all, there isn't much the 7th-year grad student hasn't seen.
I've been playing football for like 90 years, it feels like at this point. So I try not to let anything outside the game impact me, right?
Admittedly, Tuttle came in last year to back up JJ. At the time, he didn't even know he would be eligible for another season.
What I brought in that moment, and I still do now, is just toughness. Just an older guy, willing to do anything for the team and sell out for this team, because that's all I want. I want Michigan to be and play at the highest level possible.
Unfortunately, Jack spent much of this extra year recovering from an injury.
At one point, I didn't even know if I was going to be able to throw a ball again. And, you know, to be able to be granted those 2 things is pretty special to me personally, and just to be able to do that is such a blessing. But now to have this opportunity, give whatever to this team possible, time, energy, body, soul, spirit, everything.
I asked Jack what made him optimistic for a strong second half. He said, "We have so many guys who've made huge plays for a national championship club." He said, "I know we have the talent. We can do this. It's just a matter of finding the right formula." For Inside Michigan Football, I'm Ed Kangerski.
All right, so one of the things that I liked about Jack Tuttle is when he had to make plays with his feet, he kept his eyes downfield. The touchdown to Colston Loveland being an example. Now, that doesn't mean he always threw it, but he kept his eyes downfield to keep the pass play alive while still making plays with his feet on the ground.
What was great about that play is he had options, and had the protection been just a little bit better, you had Marlon Klein coming underneath. It broke down, so he extends the play. He escapes out of the backside of the pocket, knowing that it buys him more time. As he rolls to the right, Colston Loveland and all the other receivers are also moving to the right with him, their left, and he's able to find Colston in the end zone.
He had a big 3rd down conversion to Amarion Walker pass where Walker made a good catch and took a hit, but that was a big play in that moment.
It would be nice to have one of the receivers, but especially Amarion Walker, because he does have that speed. He's got a little bit more height. You could use him down the field, but just to get in the flow of the offense, to get him the ball felt good.
Now, the other thing that Sharon Moore said to you earlier in the week was he wants to keep the competition going. So let's talk about Alex Orji, a developing prospect at quarterback who's known for making plays with his feet, but the pass game never really got going. And the odd thing was the batted passes at Washington.
Yeah, for him, it's going to be working on his release. A lot of those batted passes are the ball's just coming out low. He also needs to be able to shift. If he just takes a shift in the pocket and has a little presence of, here's my throwing lane, there's where I need to go, I move over just a little bit, and now it's not a batted ball. Some of those are some of the things. I also think the coaches could probably do a little bit more with testing him going downfield. We know he's got a strong arm. We're just trying to figure out how accurate he's going to be. He's made good decisions, so let's go ahead and let him play. Let him try and earn it again.
Yeah, turnovers weren't a problem as much with Alex Orji, but Davis Warren, he made some great throws early in the year. Probably got a little loose with the football. That's why they made the change. But Davis, you can tell he has a strong arm.
He does, and he's got a good pocket presence as well. He did against Texas in the second half. Got outside the pocket, started making some throws. Not all of those interceptions are on him. Some of them were protection. Some of them were wrong routes. Some of them were tip balls. But it's ultimately the responsibility of the quarterback to protect the football.
You can tell he's talented. big on talent, short on experience.
Yeah, and it comes down to, I mean, you don't want to be, at some point you got to have some on-the-job training, and that's what this is going to be. He got a little bit. Now, during this bye week, all three of them, what are they doing to take a look at that film and to work on the things that they need to work on, because it's a little bit different from everyone.
Well, I know Kirk Campbell's working with him, the quarterback coach and offensive coordinator. It's a crash course in quarterbacking as Michigan gets set for a stretch run starting at Illinois. We'll have more on the Michigan offense, and later, Wolverine head coach Sharon Moore here on Inside Michigan Football.
Our week is all about self-reflection. It's all about finding ways that you can get better and your teammates can get better and the team overall can get better.
Inside Michigan Football is brought to you by Meyer, presenting sponsor of the 2024 Michigan football season and proud sponsor of thousands of local sports teams across the Midwest. Hand off to Mullins, running up the middle. He's got a hole, 45, 40. Oh, Mullins into clear. Whoa, look at this. To the 10, to the 5. Touchdown, Wolverines.
All right, back here on Inside Michigan Football, the bye week. We've talked about the quarterback play. One thing that could help the quarterback play is the receiver starting to make plays downfield. They get the football in their hands, but a lot of it is short routes. So how can they try and open some things up downfield?
Some of it's scheme. Some of it, you got to scheme some guys open. Others is you just have to be able to create separation. I've been talking about Peyton O'Leary as a guy that runs really good routes. He doesn't have the speed to create separation, but when he comes in and out of breaks, the way he sells it, he can create separation. So you've got to find a way, whether it's Samaj Morgan, Fred Moore, a lot of those guys need to just be a little bit more precise in their route running. That can also create some of that separation that they need.
I've talked to some of those kids, and they're working very hard. Samaj got the football in his hands, and he's really dangerous when he does. And I know at the beginning of the year, he said one of his goals was to become more of a downfield threat, still a work in progress.
He is, and he is a dynamic player. He's a guy, and he's not short on confidence. He's a guy that wants the ball, he wants to be a playmaker, and he's going to work at trying to improve all those things, whether it's route running, when he has the ball in his hands, is understanding the defense, where all of the help is coming from, and trying to avoid some of that. But then downfield, again, it's a matter of opportunity.
Okay, a guy who is doing a great job is Colston Loveland. He is getting open. He's catching the football when it's thrown to him. He's toughed his way through some injuries, been banged up a little bit. What more can be said about the Gooding, Idaho native?
Well, one, hold on to the ball. I mean, there is a fumble on the resume now. There's one route that we know was run wrong, but it's just a matter of fine-tuning everything. In the pass game, like I mentioned with the receivers, it's about creating separation. Now, he is a guy that all three of the quarterbacks are looking to because he's a big target, and he has been in some tough situations, double covered. They're throwing him the ball. They're asking him to go make plays. In the run game, a tall guy like Colston, it's all about pad level. Keep working that low pad level.
Well, the other part of the passing game is protection. I know you always got your eye on that. What do you think of the pass protection?
It's been okay. It's been getting better, but we've got to, eventually, you've got to find ways to have one-on-one matchups that you can win. And right now, we struggle on one-on-one matchups. Double teams. All right, again, we go back to Pee Wee football. That's the first thing that's coached, and these guys are doing well at that. But you've got to find a way, technique-wise and confidence-wise. That's why the bye week really comes at a perfect time, because they can be out there working with the D-line. Coaches can't be with them, don't need to be with them. It's all about steps. It's about body placement and balance, and it's about hand placement.
The run blocking, however, they're doing a better job.
Oh, they're coming off the ball. That's the one thing that you can rely on. And when they do get back out there against Illinois, it's all about pad level. When you come off the ball and you start running the ball, now you can run the play action passes. And as a lineman, I don't care how far back he is. He could be at a 5-7 step drop. It doesn't matter. I'm coming off the ball, sell and run. Then it makes it easy.
And the running backs have been really good. Donovan Edwards and Kalel Mullings. They have big play capability for sure.
Yeah, and when you start talking about the quarterback, when Alex Orji's in there, they're packing the box tight. When Jack Tuttle got in there, all of a sudden safeties are a little bit further back. That nickel's not playing at linebacker level. He's got to honor a receiver. So it opened things up for Donovan Edwards, and we know that Kalel Mullins is as consistent as they come.
There's always a chance that somebody else is going to emerge somewhere. Coaches talk about how week 6, 7, 8, some of the freshmen start to really step up. So you never know who's going to come out of nowhere and make an impact in the second half.
The second half, the beautiful thing about this is that there's going to be opportunity. Young guys are going to be thrown in there. And as a young guy, that's all you want is a shot. Go out there, take your shot, and see what happens.
Bye week, reps, reps, reps for the Michigan offense. We'll come back and talk about the Michigan defense, and a little bit later, head coach Sharon Moore here on Inside Michigan Football.
We don't have our heads down walking around the building. You know, we're not sad face. You know, we just have a mission to get better at football, and we're going to attack that. The sky's the limit for this defense, and where we can end up and finish as as a unit. I mean, we have the talent. Just got to take care of the small details.
We continue on a bye week edition of Inside Michigan Football, and let's talk about the Michigan defense. We'll start with the guys up front. In the middle, Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham. They are playing the way the owner's manual reads they're supposed to play.
Yeah, and now it's a matter of all 11 guys on defense. Now that they know a little bit more about Jayshon Barnum, we'll talk about more of these guys in just a minute, but how can they best use him to complement what's going on up front? That's really where this defense has to go to the next level, because you're getting one-on-one wins up front between Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. Even when Rayshawn Benny's in there, you're getting one-on-one wins. So they've been able to develop some depth. And now it's, hey, how can we best utilize all these other tools as complements to what those two are doing inside?
On the edge, they've missed Derek Moore for a game. Josiah Stewart was out, but when those guys are in there, they're making plays.
Yeah, and TJ Guy has done a really nice job of filling in the last couple of weeks. So now it's just going back to the rush plans that we have been talking about for the last couple of weeks. We saw Josiah Stewart switch his up a little bit, from instead of going from outside to inside, going inside to outside. Now it's a matter of, can he have a move off of the move? He's got a go-to move, and I like the inside move, but when somebody shuts it off, because as we go down the road, you're going to be playing against better and better offensive tackles. If he wants to play at the next level, once they shut off your best move, what are you going to do after that?
All right, you already mentioned Jayshon Barham, and he has been pretty good. And Ernest Hausman, the last couple games, it feels like Ernie, as the defense coordinator, Wink Martindale calls him, feels like Ernie's been all over the field. He made a ton of tackles in the Minnesota game. He had that huge interception against Washington.
Yeah, I mean, he's the leading tackler on the team, and he is a guy that goes sideline to sideline, downhill. They've got him covering tight ends, and we saw in the interception, it was beautiful. And then talking to Coach Jean-Marie during the week, one of the things that he likes is, you have the technology on the sidelines now with the iPads. Ernie was able to look at the drop that he had and how it was in relationship to the receivers. So all of a sudden he goes out there and is able to implement what he saw on the sideline, what he learned about that one rep, go out there and perform, and it turned into an interception.
All right, in the secondary, a couple of veterans. Will Johnson is having a heck of a good year, has a couple of pick sixes. Well, let's just start with him. Yeah. This guy's making plays.
He is, and he's going to have to be on an island, a shutdown corner. We know that some of the other guys are going to need a little bit of help, so he's got to take on that responsibility. It's probably not fair, but if he wants to be that top 3, top 5 draft pick, it's a way to show that off.
So the safety spot, they lose Rod Moore. That's a big loss. He was the quarterback of the defense, but Makari Page has played well, Quentin Johnson, and they really like Brandon Hillman, the way number 6 has emerged there. Yeah,
you're starting to develop some depth there. Now it's a matter of being in sync with everything that's going on, understanding, when you give up a big play to start the game, doesn't mean you have to sag off all the time. You still need to be able to come up and make some plays.
All right, other guys that are emerging that are looking for consistency, Jair Hill, the corner opposite. He gets picked on a little bit, and to be expected, people aren't going to want to throw at Will Johnson. And that guy has made some plays. Same thing with Zeke Berry. All room for improvement for those guys. Amir Hall as well. They're going to get the football thrown their direction a lot. They've made some plays, but again, it's trying to make them more.
It's trying to make more plays, and we saw in the Minnesota game with Jair Hill, he was in phase. He looked back at the right second. You just need more consistency from him. Zeke Berry, more consistency from him. But it's also, how can the coaches, the secondary coaches, and Wink Martindale, as he's constructing the defense, how can he put them in position to be successful?
That's the story with the Michigan defense. Special teams, what can we say about Dominic Zavada? He is a weapon.
He is. I mean, if you're at the 40-yard line, you think you've got a shot, and that changes play calling offensively. Maybe you try and take a couple of shots down when you get in that 40, 30-yard area. But to have that confidence that you can rely on a kicker to make a 55, 56-yarder.
He's been outstanding and the highlight of Michigan special teams play. We'll hear from Michigan head coach Sharon Moore coming up here on Inside Michigan Football.
Our conversation with the coach is brought to you by Meyer.
Coach, we were talking just before we started recording here, and I asked you about how the team is doing. And the one thing I know about college kids is they're pretty resilient. What have you seen from the team this week?
Yeah, we took 24 hours and finished it. You know, we watched it, we learned from it, and we're on to the next game.
How have practices been?
Really good. You know, had our first one today, and the boys really got after it. We had an opportunity to practice yesterday. Had the older guys out here today. They did some work, did some recovery stuff, but it went well.
So let's talk about that opportunity practice. Who has really stood out to you as some of the young guys?
Yeah, I mean, guys like Channing Goodwin really done a good job. You know, Trey Pierce and Eno got some work in there. Some younger D linemen that have played, but still got some work. So it's been good to watch those guys and watching the young quarterbacks throw as always.
Do you see an opportunity for some of those young guys to start working their way into the game?
Yeah, we'll see. I think this is always, you know, in the past couple years, it's been like week 6, week 7, where guys start to show out. Hogan Hanson's another guy. He's played in the game, but he does that, so it's good for him to do it, and those guys just keep working.
So I got to ask, I know it's only been one day with the older guys, but quarterback, where are you leaning? How are those guys developing?
Yeah, I mean, they've been good. It's been good to get all those guys together. You know, right now leaning towards Jack. Yeah, he's thrown the ball really well again, and done all the things we think from an offensive standpoint to make us successful.
How do you work, because they're all different styles, how do you work a practice when you're trying to take a look at all three guys and make that call? Yeah,
I mean, you have the offense set for different guys and different things, but we all ask them to do similar things within the framework of the offense, and then there's specific plays for specific guys. So we got to be smart as coaches on how we organize it and how we put it together to make sure it flows as a practice.
Defensively, I know Wink has been working on a few things. What have you seen this week early on with the defense?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't worked on too much scheme overall. You know, we've talked about it as a staff. It's been more of like, how do we get better at those little things and fundamentals? And you can see the guys working on those fundamental things to get better.
I know there's always a list of rules to follow. The bye week, you said there's going to be a couple of days off. What was the advice that you gave the guys with a little free time?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't told them anything yet. I'll wait till we lead up to those days of guys, how they control themselves, whether they go home, whether they don't. You know, I want them all to mentally get a flush and reset so they're ready for the rest of this season. I
appreciate it, Coach. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Friday night battle in the big house. Two teams, Rochester and Plymouth, going at it, and they go into overtime. They end up tied. It was for a conference title, and it was an epic battle. So happy to be able to see my son, 77, in the big house, and it was just a thing of beauty.
All right, John, how would you describe yourself as a sports parent, not just for Jack, but for all your kids?
Well, you know how it goes, right? When you're watching your kids play, especially a sport that you played, it's at times agonizing. When you are trying to coach them, but you're also trying to be dad, there's a fine line. And the way I've worked it is, if they want some help, I'll provide some suggestions. If they come to me with some questions, I'll dig a little bit deeper. There have been some days where we've hit the sled. There have been some, work on the stance, some get-offs at home. So he's had his fair share of coaching.
It's funny. I always wanted to have a post-game debriefing with my kids, like sit down and just talk about it. They never wanted to talk to me.
No, I know. Just this past weekend, they get done with the game, and I want to talk about all the good things that happened, but some corrections that need to be made. And I ask them, I'm like, hey, do you want to talk about the game? Not really.
That's the way it goes.
That's a 13-year-old boy.
All right, so the rest of the schedule starts off at Illinois. Tough game at Michigan State. Oregon, Ohio State are still there. It is a tough schedule, but if this team can make some improvements, they can do some good things.
They can, and it's about, I've talked about this throughout the show, it's about being consistent. Consistent from the quarterback play, consistent play up front with the offensive line and the defensive line. That's really where this team is going to be able to take a leap and compete with some of these teams, whether it's on the road against Illinois or it's Indiana. There are some teams that are trying to become relevant, and it's up to Michigan to make sure that they put them right back where they're supposed to be.
All right, we'll be watching and look for that improvement from the Wolverines and from Jack as we continue through the season here on Inside Michigan Football. See you next week.
Inside Michigan Football is brought to you by Meijer, presenting sponsor of the 2024 Michigan football season and proud sponsor of thousands of local sports teams across the Midwest.